lives on tape. It lives on tape. Stop worrying.
Not once have you heard me.
It lives on tape. Tape.
Another technological disaster.
It lives. It lives. It lives on tape. Look out! That slithering death is right on you!
Welcome everyone to It Lives on Tape, your inaugural favorite horror movie podcast. My name is Torkel and I'm here with my lovely host Tanner. How you doing today?
G'day Torkel, doing fantastic. Great to be back.
Excellent. Yes, we're back again after our Halloween special, our Halloween show where we went through the OG Halloween movies and their subsequent remakes and remasterings.
Yes,
that was a lot of fun.
Unfortunate remake. And,
yes, some of the very unfortunate ones indeed.
The pretty damn good reboot. Yeah.
And now we're diving into a whole new topic of my own choosing this time. Anxiety horror. Haha. I brought the paper with me. See,
different studios, same paper. That's
exactly.
That's wild.
For our audience, I record in Perth sometimes, and I've got a different setup that I'm working on here. But this time I've brought the budget with us. I've got the paper, I've got the Sharpie, I've got the episode title written down. We've got it all.
It's getting really slick.
Oh yeah. Just you guys wait. I'm going to have like a background and everything. It's like one step at a time. We're working on it. But this time we just improved the webcam and we got the anxiety horror written down. The mainstay, the topic of the episode.
Yeah, so what is anxiety horror? What makes horror anxiety horror?
Very good question. Because in my research, I thought that there might be like a subgenre of anxiety horror or something. But then I realized that there isn't really. I think it just is horror. Like anxiety is just such an integral part of horror that it just fits within the mainstay themes of what horror is. So yeah, we've kind of got an episode laid out for you guys where later on we're going to talk about two movies that we each picked out that we think are particularly anxiety inducing to us individually. But before then, I'll talk a bit about why I decided to talk about anxiety horror and why I see it as its own thing, even though it is also a part of horror, obviously.
I also see it as its own thing. It's a different kind of mood, I feel.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't think all horror is anxiety inducing or is playing on anxiety. So
I agree.
Yeah, I totally see it as its own genre.
Yeah, I entirely agree with that. I think some horror movies, they have a very different way of going about to where you don't necessarily feel anxiety throughout it. It might be more spur of the moment surprise. I don't know, it might be more gore instead. Mm-hmm. It might be more comedy horror as well, where it's a bit less anxiety too. There's different elements that can offset the anxiety for sure. And then there's specific movies that are incredibly anxiety inducing, and a lot of them on purpose, using many techniques that we'll cover over the course of the episode.
No, definitely. Oh, excellent. I'm anxiously awaiting.
Yeah, you feeling anxious? You ready, kid?
Oh, yeah. Right on the edge of my seat.
So let's get into the definitions of anxiety that I copy and pasted straight from Google. Because I thought our audience, they know what anxiety is, but let's refresh it for them so they can really get into the mindset of what we're talking about here and how it's going to apply to horror.
Of course. And if you want to read along at home, just type anxiety into Google and and you can just read it. Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be the same because I literally took this straight from Google. So this is the definition of anxiety. It's a feeling of worry, it's nervousness or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. And doesn't that sound like horror to you? An uncertain outcome in particular, and worry about what's going to happen. That really sounds like horror to me, especially in a film.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's the picturing, like you can picture what's going to happen. You know, you have this idea of what's coming. And that's what's building the anxiety.
You know something's coming, but you don't know when. Stuff like that. Yeah, the jump scare. So along with the other definition of anxiety, we've got a strong desire or concern to do with something or for something to happen. So that's pretty much the same thing, just repeating itself. We didn't really need that one there. But we've also got a psychiatric
I love
definition.
we're doing an audit of the Google result.
Damn you, Google.
Kind of repeating yourself there, Google. That's
Yeah, I guess they're doubling down to give a clearer definition for people, but we get it. Our listeners are very intelligent.
Absolutely, they are.
Yeah, so now we've also got a nice little psychiatric definition that Google provided us with.
Which
DSM, of anxiety.
Which diagnostic manual version are we looking at here?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but this is Google's
DSM-6.
Oh,
are we?
I don't even know what that refers to. This is
So
above my pay grade.
there's no way that we're still at DSM-5. The
It's like a power level.
DSM is it's like a power level in psychiatry. No, it's the diagnostic manual that's used worldwide, I assume, in psychology and psychiatry in diagnosing specific conditions. So they change the diagnostic criteria over time to update it to current understandings of disorders or conditions. And so there's revisions, and that's the number. So I think when I went through my psychology degree, we're at DSM-4, and then we bumped up to 5. I thought we would have been at 6 by now, but it doesn't look like it.
Lagging behind. Yeah, the ever-evolving field of psychiatry and psychology.
Yes.
And Google, I suppose, has taken a definition from them, hopefully, about anxiety as a condition. And as someone who experiences a fair bit of anxiety in my life, I can attest to some of these things written here. It says a mental condition characterized by excessive apprehensiveness about real or perceived threats, typically leading to avoidance behaviors and often to physical symptoms such as increased heart rate and muscle tension. Now that, you could just imagine that in a horror film.
Right. I think we've all felt that sitting in the cinema.
Yeah.
Feeling the build-up of tension and clutching to our seats.
Yeah, I love on Twitch as well, you see horror streamers, like horror game streamers that have a heart rate monitor on them. Yeah. And you can see the heart rate increase when there's a scary part coming. It's the same with movies.
No, that's sweet.
Yeah, and obviously actors as well in horror movies, they'll be displaying these symptoms through muscle tension and things like that, rigid movements and the physical expressions on their face to show that they're experiencing anxiety, which is so important to the film.
Making silly decisions.
Yeah, bad decisions under stress. Yep, so true. So how this all relates to horror? Well, we've kind of gone over that already. But for example, the impending doom of knowing that a killer or a monster is going to eventually find the main character. The feeling that you feel watching that, and also the feeling that the actor is displaying, the anxiety that they're producing as an artist throughout the film. Moments like that. A really important one as well, a movie that I watched the other day, The Descent.
Oh,
movies
yes.
Movies that play on fears like claustrophobia or pitch darkness like The Descent does.
Oh, that's a great one. Because that's something I'm actually terrified of, and I don't think I'd ever do.
No way.
Cave exploring to that level.
Hell
you
no.
know, where you're, trying to fit yourself through nooks and crannies.
Those horrible parts where they're squeezing in and they got to hold their breath so they don't like have too much oxygen in their lungs and get stuck in a hole. Yeah.
Nah, that's horrible.
Yeah. That's
So
extremely
bad.
anxiety inducing. Like claustrophobia is such a common thing, and even fear of darkness. And something in particular with me is found footage horror. I find that particularly anxiety inducing. So just the shakiness of torches in that movie, things like that.
Yeah.
And it sort of replicates that.
Yep. It's all on like Handycam as well.
Handycam footage.
Yeah. Such a great movie though.
Really, really good. It was one of Emma's favorites, and I didn't realize I hadn't watched it before, so I just watched it the other day.
Yeah, I
So
watched
good.
it for the first time this year as well, and
Awesome.
I was really, really surprised I hadn't seen it. It's fantastic. It's a great movie. Someone recommended it to me on my Twitch stream actually when I was asking for
cool.
horror movie recommendations. So yeah,
Sweet.
I ended the stream a bit earlier and then went and watched it. It was really good.
I gotta go
Such a
see
good-
this, guys.
Yeah. I'm like, man,
That's so good.
I'm terrified of getting stuck in caves.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a spoiler because it's quite an old movie. Granted, we only saw it this year, but the monsters in it are fantastic.
Really well done.
In
Indeed.
fact, probably an example of a running zombie movie.
Oh, that is interesting. We didn't cover that in Running Zombies.
That's maybe
But they are.
a horror hot take right there.
Oh, you know what I brought with me as well to this new studio?
No way.
The horror hot take box.
Oh gosh, it follows us everywhere. No, that's
Yes,
great.
it does. It follows. Oh, yes. But The Descent is a perfect anxiety horror example movie. It fits in that perceived genre that we are creating here on this episode really
Right.
well. Yeah.
I was gonna say, seeing as anxiety horror isn't an established genre in the greater
Strange.
community, we can just make it about movies that make us anxious.
Yeah. We could add anything to it. It'll be our list.
That's right. Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else that I'd want to add. Though.
I was going to say something
Maybe we
really
should
strange.
workshop it over time.
Yeah, like that old kids show, like the Night Garden or whatever it's called.
Oh, In the Night Garden. Yes.
In the Night Garden, that's quite anxiety inducing because it's very strange. That's on
Yeah.
the list. Anxiety horror.
That's on, Teletubbies also on the list.
Teletubbies
Boo
are very
Bars
strange.
on the list.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think any of those
potentially
children's-
Moomin. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's a Scandinavian. Yeah, I think we may have spoken about it on an older episode, but that's a strange anxiety inducing kind of artistic style kids show.
Yeah, I looked it up. Yep. The Bookworm. Also
Bookworm.
anxiety
Oh
horror.
yes, the bookworm is horror. Oh, the wretched bookworm. That puppet. Oh god, that was a
Actually,
an era.
I'd love to write a horror movie that is about a children's TV show that is like a mind worm that like lives in people's brains and like causes them to do bizarre and sinister, horrible things like later on in life. Sort of a bit like a Manchurian Candidate type thing. Like people get triggered, you know, they've been like programmed by this TV show.
God, I like that.
Trademark.
Okay.
We're copywriting that right here.
Trademark that. And for inspiration, I'll throw something out at you. A short series, an Australian short comedy series on YouTube called Here Comes the Sun is about it's about a cult kids TV show, or it turned into a cult, or it was part of a cult about the sun, worshipping the sun. And it's
like
fictional.
Teletubbies.
Yeah, very similar to Teletubbies. It's definitely inspired by things like that. And it's very funny, and also, it has those cult aspects, some similarities. I definitely look at that as some inspiration for this this trademarked project that you've just announced.
Also, inspiration would be, have you seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?
I've seen clips of that. Yeah. I've heard of it a lot.
Yeah, that's another great example. Of
very
that sort of
unsettling.
Weird, unsettling, sinister, undercurrent type kid show-esque thing. Anyway.
No, I love that. I love that aside. And that's a good segue back into it, because why am I so interested in anxiety horror and making this into our own genre? I kind of have this fascination with anxiety subjects in media. I write a lot of short stories and things like that are comedic and surround the topic of anxiety, the main character experiencing anxiety and exaggerating it within the scene. Mm-hmm. And I've really been drawn to that subject of comedy, which is I think there's a term for it. It's awkward comedy. I think that's what you usually call it.
Yeah.
Awkward scenarios that are quite anxiety inducing watching it, because it's oh God, that's so awkward. You're cringing at it. It's like that. And the same goes for horror in a lot of aspects. You're feeling this anxiety about what's going to happen to the main character, or just a scene where they're walking through a room and it's someone's probably hiding behind those curtains or something, or you see the shadow on the wall and you're just getting anxious, and you're anxious for them because they haven't seen it yet. Stuff like that. Yeah. It's so similar to the awkward comedy, I think. Don't you reckon?
Wow, there's so many parallels to stuff that we were exposed to as kids. When you'd go to the local theater, in-person theater, people acting and doing stuff, and there'd be kids shows that you'd watch, and there's that whole trope of, oh, I can't see so-and-so, where are they? And they'll be popping out from side stage, or they're like a puppet or something, and they pop out from behind a backdrop, and the entire audience of children is he's there,
look over there, and they're where? I can't see anything. What? Huh? That's so similar to horror, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I've never made that connection before. That's really interesting.
Oh, we're going to do a deep dive on the connections between comedy and horror one day. It's going to be a good episode. No one take that from us yet. We're working on it.
Even if they do, it's
you can.
It's going to be a good time. Yeah.
Sharing the horror, love. And anxiety, it's important to me as someone who experiences anxiety. I really enjoy it in comedy, as I said, and there's that connection between the awkwardness in comedy and the anxiety of horror. And an example of that, like we said earlier, when you know that the jump scare is coming, and I think about this particularly in paranormal activity movies, particularly in things like probably The Conjuring and Insidious when I watched those, the makers of the film know that you're expecting a jump scare, and they play on that fear. They'll be building it up through the music and through the camera, slowly shifting to the side of the main character who's doing something in a closet or whatever. And then the jump scare doesn't happen, and they're teasing it. They're building up the tension, the anxiety in you as a viewer. And then it finally hits, and it's oh my God, takes the breath out of you.
Yeah.
That's a big, big element in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of tells that you don't realize are there until you start looking at them across several different movies. But yeah, it's a really interesting art form, to build like a jump scare, or to build that tension, to have an effective release. It's something that I've been trying to quantify with data, like actually looking. Yeah, have I told you about this project that I'm working on?
Yeah, you have. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, go ahead. Tell the audience.
I'm trying to build a machine learning model, so an algorithm that can tell you when a jump scare is coming in a movie that you're watching. And to do that, I'm using a whole bunch of scenes that contain jump scares, and I'm training an ensemble of models, so a group of models across a whole bunch of different signal types. This is going to get really nerdy. It's already
this is awesome,
really nerdy. But this is cool. Everything from like the music, like the volume of it, the average frequency of the music. So is it like high pitched sounds or low pitched sounds? How dynamic is it? So is it really quiet, whereas before it was a more mid volume? What's the probability that there's something really loud coming up? The visual aspects of things. So what's the average luminance of the frames? Is it light or dark? What's in the frame? So is there a person? Can we see like another face behind them or something like that? I'm looking into like composition of frames. So what kind of camera angles are more likely to have jump scares associated with them? All of these together, and other things, they're part of the language of a jump scare. And it's really interesting to like look into those signals, those same signals that tell you when two characters have like romantic tension between them and they're going to kiss in a romantic comedy maybe. Those same signals can be used in completely different ways with different words and convey something to you, like you should be feeling really anxious right now because something bad is going to happen to the person on the screen. It's such an interesting thing to look at from a data perspective.
That's so cool. I know some of the more like internet involved, more computer science perhaps specialists in our audience will really appreciate that, so thanks for sharing. And I think you're right, all those elements are so important to jump scares in particular, and anxiety in horror, because that's such an integral part of jump scares as well. And through doing that, I can imagine you've probably analyzed the art behind jump scares and anxiety more than the average person when it comes to horror.
I'm like still very early on with my actual like analysis component of that. And it's like this is a lot of work. It's going to take me like possibly a couple of years.
Damn.
It should really be a PhD, but I don't want to do a PhD.
It's just a casual fun side project.
Right. But it has changed the way that I watch these movies, where I'm looking for certain things and thinking about them from their like individual components. It's like thinking of the letters that make up a word.
I like that. I can imagine that in the form of poetry. It's something that applies to me. Yeah, how these seemingly random words can be paired together super well to create an image in your head. Yeah. I like that a lot. And with anxiety, the music is such an important factor, as well as the visual and all the technical aspects of it. Like you can just imagine in your head, the droning sound slowly becomes louder, gets sharper. The like drum hits or the violin shrieks or something like that. Something always happens as it gets to the point of scare, the point of climax with the scene. The ultimate
Or
anxiety
maybe it
attack.
dissipates. It like builds and then dissipates. And then you think
Out
the
of nowhere.
character is... You think they faked you out, and then bang!
Yeah.
They give you
That's
that
when
jump scare.
That's when the producers and the directors and the filmmakers are getting really smart with it, because they know what you're expecting. They're trying to subvert your expectations, just like in comedy as well. Subversive comedy, trying to subvert the expectations and hit the joke on a note where the audience isn't expecting it anymore, and that's what makes it funny. Weird
Since
parallels.
we're talking about jump scares,
Yeah.
do you know the history of like the first ever jump scare?
I don't think I do. No. Enlighten me.
Ah, yes. It was in a movie called Cat People. And it's called the Luton Bus. Because the producer behind it, his surname is Luton. I've forgotten his first name. And the scene that it happens in, there's this woman, she's walking through dark alleyways, empty streets, and the cat people are stalking her.
That's horrific enough on its own.
Right. You're all thinking about Cats,
It's Cats but horror.
the movie that came out a couple of years ago. That was an absolutely horrible rendition of Cats the musical.
Almost horror on its own. So close
It
to
would be
it.
so easy to make that into a horror movie.
Oh yeah,
But
if you
they're
just change the
stalking
music in
her.
it.
Oh yeah, easy. Done.
I'm sure there's clips of that on YouTube, changing the Cats music for horror music.
Totally. It would be so
go ahead.
easy. I actually haven't seen it, and I plan on keeping it that way.
Oh, funny story. I actually started watching it with Emma like a month or two ago, and we had to turn it off. It was so hard to get through. It was so difficult. Because I'll usually watch anything,
gosh.
but it was so difficult to get through.
Yeah, I'm the same. I tend to avoid things I know that I won't like, because once it's on, I'll just watch it.
Yeah, you got to get to the end of it at that point.
But yes, these cat people are stalking her, and there's all this tension building, and then she rushes out onto the street, and you think they're going to get her, and then there's this massive hissing sound that's very very punctuated, very like staccato. It arrives all at once, and that tension is dissipated then by the realization that this is a bus that has pulled up, and its hydraulic brakes are the cause of that hissing sound, hence the Luton Bus.
That's so cool.
Was the prototype of jump scares. From there, they realized, we can, it was a technique that was emulated from that point on.
Awesome. I can imagine that so clearly in my head. I need to watch it now. The hydraulic brakes just squeaking, going zzz, the hissing sound. Yeah. And I remember when we were workshopping before we started the podcast,
That's right.
our name for the podcast. Yeah, and you mentioned Luton Bus, and maybe a spin on that as one of our ideas for a title or a name for the podcast. And I had never heard of him before that, so I did a bit of research, but I still haven't seen that clip. That sounds awesome. I need to see the first jump scare that there ever was.
That's very interesting. But yeah, I sort of selfishly didn't want us to call the podcast that, because that's a name idea that I've had for a post-punk band ever since I heard that.
It'd be so good as a band too.
Yeah,
it fits well.
Totally. And I love It Lives on Tape for us.
Oh, it's worked out so well. I mean,
yeah.
God, it's perfect.
I think we stumbled into the perfect name for us.
Something brilliant about it. Yeah. Oh, magnifique.
Ooh, more please.
I feel like it's one of those names that develops its own meaning. You know what I mean? It's got its own identity. I didn't realize that nothing else was called It Lives on Tape. We've like got the naming rights on every social media platform and everything. It's kind of crazy. It's so rare to get that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. There's a lot of like live on tape.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. It's not the same.
We're competing. We're competing in the search algorithms with live on tape. We'll get them. We'll get them one day. But yeah, let's get back to the anxiety of horror, shall we?
Please.
So, of course, jump scares are a very important element to what makes up anxiety and horror. But there's so many parts of horror where anxiety is an integral part of it, of course. And it's a natural part of the human condition as well, and a natural response to horror itself. So it makes sense for horror to play on those fears, to cause an anxiety within us and to display the anxiety on screen for us to then sympathize with, empathize with, to experience ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I think we'll go on a short little break here before we get into our two movies, Mother and Smile. So be warned, There may be some spoilers as we get into these, but hopefully we make you feel a little anxious. We make you feel anxious to watch those movies themselves because they are two amazing movies as well. So yeah, we'll be right back. Okay, everyone, we're back with It Lives on Tape, talking about anxiety horror here. And as we discussed before the break, we're going to be breaking down two very anxious movies that we chose in Mother, with an exclamation mark, and Smile. Yes, indeed.
Yes.
We specifically chose these for their anxious elements. So we're going to talk about some of those as we go through each film.
Yeah, these actually, so when I Googled anxiety horror, because I thought surely that is a genre, an established subgenre.
So we made the same mistake there. Oh, they did? Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were like top results. So Google figured that out without any sort of subgenre. So, yeah.
Nice. And I'll say Mother is on Stan streaming service in Australia, and Smile is on quite a few. It's on Paramount Plus, it's on Binge, it's on Foxtel Go, all those beautiful places if you want to watch these. We're going to give a few spoilers, of course, but we'll entice you into watching them, I'm sure, because they are really good movies. So we'll start
very
off.
Artful.
Oh yeah, super artful. And both really interesting backgrounds that we'll get into as well. We'll start off with Mother, which is my choice, one of my favorite horror movies. I may have even spoken about it in episode 0. I can't remember.
I think you did, yeah.
I must have.
It was one of your listed key defining Torkel movies.
Yeah, it really had an impact on me. And I just watched it last night, which was only the second time I've ever watched it. And I learned a lot more about it, I got to say. I actually learned what the movie was about this second time. I just neglected it before. I didn't understand what it was about.
So you didn't know what it was about the first time around?
I just thought this is really anxiety inducing. That's all I got out of it.
Okay. Because I was watching it the first time, and this was some time ago now. And I was thinking, none of this really makes all that much sense. Like it must be referencing something. So I'm sure you're going to talk about what it references as part of your breakdown. But yeah, that I don't know. My gears were churning the first time, and then I was able to sort of appreciate that on the second viewing.
I see. Yeah, I definitely appreciated it. I got a new appreciation for it upon the second viewing, and I liked it even more, I dare say, because of those elements.
Me too.
And it was really cool, eh? But I guess that shows differences in the way that we view movies, because I tend to be quite vapid and not very digging deep into films. I'm just all about the aesthetic and the feeling that I'm getting from it, which was anxiety in the case of Mother initially.
Right. I think you're being a bit unfair on yourself calling it vapid.
Perhaps a bit unfair, but it's the way my mind works, and I like it. I'm
You've just got
along
a
for the
stronger
ride.
focus on the visual elements, I think.
Yeah. I'm in a very dreamlike state when I'm watching movies, and I'm laughing at parts that I wasn't supposed to be laughing at and stuff like that. Connecting dots where they shouldn't be connected. All sorts of nonsense going on in my brain.
Yes. Films are your funerals.
Yeah. But Darren Aronofsky, to be precise. That's almost a tongue twister. I made it more of a tongue twister, actually. So Darren Aronofsky made the Mother movie, directed it, actually wrote it as well. And you may recognize some of his other films. Black Swan.
Oh, what else did he do? Oh, Black Swan. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Okay,
may
I'm
be
seeing
his
the
biggest one.
parallels.
Yeah. He has a distinct style that Emma quite funnily calls quite pretentious, which I don't disagree with.
Yeah, he's both these films are very ambitious.
Yeah, ambitious is the kind way to say it.
Yeah.
But I always say pretentiousness is really important in some movies, because there's some times where they aren't courageous or ambitious or pretentious enough. And then the people who are, they will make these wild choices that will actually work out really well sometimes. So I appreciate that about some of his movies.
Yeah,
Such as Black Swan.
absolutely. I think there are a lot of movies though that have no business being as ambitious as they are, and they end up falling short or leaning too heavily on virtual effects and whatnot. And
It's
it just
true as well.
ruins it. They should have just written something a bit more manageable.
Yeah. So I think Black Swan's the biggest one that he did, but Requiem for a Dream is another one of note. I believe
No
that won some
way.
awards. Oh, okay, you're a Darren Aronofsky fan. Nice.
Holy.
Yeah, Requiem for a Dream. It's a big one.
Are you being serious right now?
Yeah, I've been a fan of his for a while.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
I'm glad I could introduce this to you. I'll give you a couple
Jesus
more.
Christ. Yeah,
A
please.
new one that he did, which I haven't seen yet, is The Whale. Last year that came out.
No
Have you seen
way.
that one?
I haven't seen that either. I've been really wanting to watch it. He did that as well?
He did that as
Who
well.
is this guy?
And that was the comeback of like Brendan Fraser's like Time to
Yeah.
Shine, his big reawakening in a role.
That's
The
right.
Whale.
His first big movie since The Mummy and El Cino Man.
Oh my God, I love that Mummy.
He was peak actor when we were kids.
Oh yeah, he was in everything. He was always
What
the funny guy
George
in
of
like
the
a rom-com.
Jungle.
Oh, George
Yeah.
of the Jungle, where he had long hair, of course.
That's right. Oh man.
Brendan Fraser's so iconic, and we love him for coming back in The Whale and for Darren Aronofsky for helping with that.
Mm-hmm. God.
Some other ones that weren't as good as these movies. Pi. Well, I can't say that about Pi because I've never watched Pi, to be honest. It's from 1998. I think that's his first film. And
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Okay. The other one, which I did watch, I think the majority of, and I fell asleep. It was not that good. It was The Fountain. It was very, very pretentious, very ambitious.
Okay, I haven't seen that either. So
Yeah, that's not
good,
that
but
good.
he-
Ignore that one.
he also did Noah.
Noah as well, yes. That's a really
Jesus.
wild one. I haven't actually seen Noah, but I know what it's about, of course. Russell Crowe playing in Noah's Ark. as
Yeah.
Noah.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
this director is I'm getting a feel for his color palette here. This is
Yeah.
I had
got a
no
very
idea this
distinct
was all
style.
the same guy. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Oh, I'm glad I could connect the dots. Yeah, he's got a very distinct style. And arguably, although I'll say I don't know what Pie's about, but it looks a little spooky. I don't think he's really dabbled in horror all that much until Mother. So this was a really cool moment for him, especially because I think it was such a good movie. I looked at the reviews and stuff, and it's a little bit divisive, but I think it was overall a success. Oh yeah, Pi is a little bit horror. I was just looking about it now. It says the story focuses on a mathematician with an obsession to find underlying complete order in the real world.
Ah, that's interesting. That's a little bit like there was a horror movie that was gaining some traction when we were going through high school, and it was The Number 23, starring Jim Carrey. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's essentially what that movie's about. You know, a guy freaking out about seeing the number 23 everywhere and trying to establish rules to find 23. Okay.
Yeah. I watched that one thinking it was a comedy at the time because there's Jim Carrey. I was like, why is this so serious? This is not what I signed up for. Obviously, you know,
it is a bit of a dark comedy, I guess.
Yeah. Dark comedy. I don't know about that, but sure.
Well, it's quite a laughable concept, no?
Yeah, it is kind of laughable, I guess. It becomes very obsessed.
Of course, you know, like a lot of my friends who saw it then became like a game amongst us to try and like achieve the 23 equations, and you know, to find how to get there. You know, it's quite relatable. Okay. It's something you can participate in yourself.
Yeah, numerology is one of those things where it can tie in everyone, as it so problematically does with a lot of people. But it's a very fun thing if you don't take it seriously.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a lot of things are fun if you don't take them seriously.
Yeah, that's very true.
Especially,
yeah, not everything, but especially horror movies, where it's like, you know, keep it. I think we said this on a previous episode. Keep it fiction, guys. Let's keep it fiction.
Right. Don't let these things get into your real life.
Yeah, if you're prone to that sort of thing. Yeah.
So Darren Aronofsky, I'll try my hand at the tongue tie.
I keep getting slipped up by it.
That's quite a quiver he's got going.
Yeah, quite a quiver indeed. Yeah, he's got a lot of good movies, and Mother hits that list really well for me. I really, really enjoyed it, and I felt anxiety out of this film unlike anxiety that I think I've experienced in any other film. It was really unique to me, and I think it's quite anxiety inducing in general, and I'll talk about those points, but particularly it was for me. So to run down, I guess I give a bit of an introduction of what the movie's actually about for those of you who haven't seen it.
Sure.
It stars Jennifer Lawrence, and it's the symbolism throughout it is about God and Mother Earth. Mm-hmm. That's where the name Mother comes from. But it's essentially a husband and a wife who move out into this big, beautiful country manor type of house. And Jennifer Lawrence, who's just named Mother, and the husband, who's just named him, is kind of strange, but that's how it is.
They never say their names throughout the movie. This is just what they're credited as. It's not that they never on the say nose.
Yeah, it really helped me because I watched stuff with subtitles. So then it says it in the subtitles, Mother and him.
Yeah, nice.
I was like, oh, I didn't know it was literal.
I'm also a subtitler.
Yeah, subtitle life. Got to see those words.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Read them as well. And she does up the house. She like remodels the house and restores it into this big, beautiful country manor that it is. It's still a work in progress, but it's really nice. Mm-hmm. And he tells this story of how it was his childhood home growing up and it burnt down. And then his, lovely wife has restored it pretty much completely on her own. And he says she brought life into each room of the house, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that element of Mother Earth and God at play throughout this film. And the anxious elements of it is this mystery around the house itself. it seemingly hums to life throughout the movie. There's scenes where Jennifer Lawrence leans against the walls as she's painting them, and there's imagery of a heart beating within the walls, stuff like that. You're just like, what the hell is going on here? Is the house alive?
Yeah, there's like a heartbeat, and this sort of fleshy threshold, and there's like bleeding floors, that are getting like holes in them, and there's blood dripping in places.
Oh yeah,
I agree. Like a lot of the gore, the more sort of gory elements of this film are like based around the house.
Yeah, they really are. Like you said, there's a hole in the floor that's stained from blood, and it just keeps growing and festering, and it never quite goes away. Even when later on in the movie it jumps ahead in time, like 9 months for a child to be growing in her womb, presumably.
Yeah, a child is born in this film.
Yeah, and that's a
spoilers,
anxiety-inducing scene on its own. Just the stress of childbirth in what they present as an apocalyptic type scenario,
an apocalyptic house party type thing going on.
Goes completely out of control on every level throughout human history, symbolically.
So you've just said that the house is like the source of anxiety for you. Is it not
one of
the people?
Sources, yeah.
Okay, one of okay. All right.
Yeah, the people as well. Yeah,
I won't put my foot down and disagree with you too hard then, because
yeah. Oh, I dare say the people are the most anxious part of it.
Right.
I back when Twitter was a normal place to hang out before it was X, I used to be on there. Now I've disabled all my accounts, but I actually I used to write funny one-liner movie reviews on Twitter, and I wrote one for Mother, and I think the review was something like this: "Get the hell out of my house. Oh my God, get out of my house. Please get the fuck out of my house." That was my whole summary of the movie.
I was thinking about like memes while I was watching it. And sort of like if I was to clip certain parts, and like what would I caption them as? And a lot of them were just like exactly what was happening. It's like when you've got people over, you're having a party and you just want them to leave.
Yeah.
It's like that's just what's happening in the movie. It's not like some obscure reference or anything. It's literally what's happening on the screen.
Exactly. It plays into that unwanted guest anxiety, people overstaying their welcome, because people just arrive at the house, which is in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, it's a country manor. These people just knock on the door and they're like, "Oh, I thought this was an Airbnb or like a bed and breakfast." And then the husband's like, "Oh, come on in. You can stay as long as you like. Great to have the company." And Jennifer Lawrence's mother is, getting kind of anxious about this because she's like, "There's strangers in our house." And they're becoming more and more comfortable with staying at our house. And she's such a kind, giving character. She really makes them feel at home. She goes out of her way to make them comfortable and stuff like that. And they take advantage of her for it. And there's that element of anxiety as well that's throughout the entire film. And
they keep on thanking him for his hospitality, but never her. They keep thanking It's actually ridiculous. When I was watching it, I kept on being like, what about her? What about what she's doing for you?
She's the one who's been making the bed and like cleaning up after everyone, doing everything. He's just like entertaining the guests. That's sort of his job. He's just having fun,
Exactly. Yeah, he's drinking with them. He's like holding their hair back while they throw up. It's
So that's a massive draw of the anxiety throughout the movie. And paired with this, as guests arrive in the house, the entire movie is shot in this particular way where the camera quite often will really just close up follow, or just look up on Jennifer Lawrence's face close up and then follow her as well as she's moving through the rooms of the house, getting sheets, cleaning up, painting the walls, doing things like going to see what that disturbance of noise was. Oh, there's a new house guest. What the hell? Things like that. The camera's just following her the whole time, zooming in on her face to see her expressions of discomfort. And it's like a handheld camera kind of feeling to it. It's shaking around a bit. You really get enveloped into what she's feeling, what she's going through. You're relating to that experience quite heavily.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sort of the whole film is sort of done as like a series of like vignettes where it feels like you're seeing just flashes of things happening, and the camera's like, okay, look over here. Now look over here. Oh, and this is happening as well. And all of that is just sort of building and building and building, and you just it's so much.
It's just throwing different things. Yeah, it keeps throwing different things at you. Every room, every person, there's something going on. Someone being irritating, something breaking in the house as more guests arrive. And she's built this whole house herself, and they're just like disrespecting her, breaking things. All this stuff just keeps building up, like you said. Oh, it's really relatable. But then the spoiler as well, the overall theme of it is, like we said, it's the pairing of God and Mother Earth. And the house, I guess, is symbolic of this earth that she's created as Mother Earth.
Yeah.
And the people, the guests of the house, are disrespecting it. And
it's
quite
us.
a heavy... Yeah, it's us. It's the human plague, essentially. You're exactly
Spoilers,
right.
It's us.
Yeah. And they say quotes throughout the film. There's one part in particular where there's a bunch of guests sitting on a sink that hasn't been braced yet, she says to them. She's like, get off, that hasn't been braced yet. And they just start jumping up and down on it, and they break it. And then water starts spurting everywhere out of the walls. And they run away. And she's like, get the hell out of the house. There's moments where she gets frustrated with everyone. She's like, get the hell out of my house. And you can hear people in the background screaming, we're being punished. We're all being
punished. That as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it's quite on the nose like that. It's like, okay, this is to do with the floods or something, like God's punishment, or the earth punishing its inhabitants for treating the earth unkindly.
Yes.
Things of that nature.
There's, I guess, coming back to that divide of how he's treated versus how she's treated. Yeah. There's this feeling that you get that everyone thinks that she's really cold and inhospitable and like very beautiful, but not very nice. And he's really warm and welcoming, and he's got such wonderful things for us, and I love his writing, and he's the best, he's the greatest. And it's horrible. It's horrible, like partially for that reason.
It's so bad. And like you said, he's this writer, he's this poet that's worshipped by all the guests. And the worship grows and grows and grows as they find out more about who he is, and as he completes this poem that he starts working on as soon as...
This elusive poem. This poem that he can't start writing. He just keeps putting it off, and that it all comes at once.
Yeah, exactly. He can't write it for the longest time. And Jennifer Lawrence is trying to support him, be like, don't worry, you'll get it one day. But then when she falls pregnant, it finally happens and inspiration strikes him. And he writes what I presume is sort of like symbolic of the commandments or something like that.
I think it's the Old Testament.
The Old Testament? Yeah, something like that for sure.
Because it shows flashbacks of them meeting and then starting to rebuild the house together. And it sort of feels reminiscent of like the creation story.
Yeah.
If you were to tie it back to like a Bible story, it would be that.
Yeah, good catch. Because I remember those those imagery parts where she's reading his work and it flashes back to them creating the house and everything together. So that definitely adds up. And oh god, he's just worshipped throughout the movie, and you can tell that we could harp on about how this character as God is just being worshipped relentlessly, and how Mother Earth is just being disrespected the entire time. But also taking away those two symbolic elements, it relates so hard on a individual level, like we said earlier, just with people coming into your house, disrespecting your property, your husband not listening to you, not paying attention to your needs, getting distracted by all these people constantly, and being so like, oh, they just want this and they just want that. I just want to be there for them. It's like, dude, I need you to be here for me right now. And he's just like, oh, well, sorry, I am here for you, I guess. See ya.
Yeah, there's so many examples of that throughout the movie where she like pulls him aside and is like, dude, I can pull your finger out. Like, I need you. And he's like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And then does something absolutely heinous.
Just give me 1 minute.
He's just got fleeting concern for, and then he's like, oh, I'm distracted by what these people are doing. Oh, it's very interesting. They're giving me such inspiration. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah. Their stories are amazing. And the way that they love my stories, it reminds me of like what it means to be a writer. And she's like, I love your stories. He's like, yeah, I know. I know that.
Yeah,
whatever.
I know you love my stories.
Yeah. I no longer care about it because I know. You know what I mean? It's like taking for granted that love, and that's definitely an image throughout the film as well, or a narrative throughout the film. That and she even says so herself, like, you're taking me for granted. And I don't know if you ever truly loved me, is a quote in the movie. I think you just loved how much I loved you.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, that's that. Oh, you could see that in a lot of individuals, of course, in relationships and stuff like that. But then also on the symbolic level as God, just wanting to be worshipped and loved by all, you could definitely play into that element if you read into biblical texts and religious texts of various sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an ego to it.
The ego. That's what it is. And all those elements are so anxiety inducing throughout the movie. And when I learnt that it was also obviously tied into climate change, I wrote it down before I realized it. I was like, could this be climate anxiety that it's trying to replicate through Mother Earth being anxious about all these people in the house and everything, destroying stuff? And then I did some research, and Darren Aronofsky is an environmental activist.
Yeah, and it's absolutely about that.
Yeah. So this is my brain. I'm like just taking that for granted, and then it hits me and I'm like, oh my God, I've unlocked the code of this movie. I finally realized it. I'm level 9,000 power right now.
Yeah. It's definitely there. Like you can feel that climate unease. It makes you feel so bad for being a person. And there's points in the movie as well, especially towards the end when things are heating up, where there's people like hammering on the walls, breaking them down to like pull stuff out, and trying to use stuff in other places. And she's like, what are you doing? Like, why are you breaking apart my house? And
why are you doing this?
The response that she gets back is, oh, so that people will know that we were here.
Yeah.
And it's like, what what does that even mean? Like, and then tying that to what we do as a civilization, you know, there's this egotism that we all sort of participate in, this cosmic narcissism that we are a phenomenon that is important, and we exist to be seen, and we you know, as a collective, we have this feeling that we want legacy, we want to live forever, either through ideas or through actual biological living forever.
Yeah. And we don't think about how the earth is what allows us to even have life in the first place. We're just, like you said, what was the word you used? Cosmic ego?
Cosmic
really
narcissism.
Good. Cosmic narcissism. I like that. That's really what it is. We're just thinking about ourselves and neglecting what actually gives us life to begin with. And like you said, it plays out in that ripping apart things, saying, oh, I want to show that we are here. And there's parts where they're just taking food from the house, stealing stuff. And she's like, why are you taking this? And people will say, oh, the poet says that this house is for everyone. He said it's for everyone. What are you
we have
about?
to share. We have to share. This is mine.
Yeah. It's like,
Did
God
you
damn
notice
it.
the people getting their photo taken in front of the hole in the floor?
Yes. Oh, that. Yep. What did you make of that?
Oh, it's like classic. It's tourism. It's
oh yeah. I thought of it as like those sites of those tourist sites of worship where, I don't know, I can't think of a good example, but there's like different religious places, like one where you kiss a rock and stuff like that. I thought of it as things like that, but yeah, just tourism in general, it definitely applies to. They're all taking photos in front of this bloody hole in the floorboards. It's like, what does this mean to them? Who knows? It's symbolic of something.
It could even be, so there's this phenomena called death tourism, where people are drawn to sites of great death, like death on a massive scale, or you know, highly deadly things, or you know, areas of like great trauma. So like a good example is like Chernobyl, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You know, all of these are places where I'm not so sure about Chernobyl now that I say it, but you know, they're places that people go and they're drawn to because of the mass amounts of death that were associated with them. And it's a bizarre part of the human psyche that, you know, we want to be around that. We want to experience sort of how mundane these places are otherwise, and how normal they are otherwise, or like to feel, I don't know, that void of life and goodness. Like people going to Auschwitz, thinking of even people going to like Aztec temples, you know, massive sites of sacrifice. It's I don't know. It's odd.
It feels really weird at sites like that when you see people that have taken selfies there, or even just a general photo, like you said, of Auschwitz, and be like, hashtag feeling really sad here today, or something like that. It's like,
right.
This just feels so wrong. Like, what? You know what happened here, right? And yeah, it gives across that sense in that scene in the movie as well, for sure.
Yeah, especially with what happened to create that hole, you know, with someone dying on top of it. And it's... so that's what it kind of meant for me. It was... that's just one of the small vignettes that we get throughout that third act of the movie. Yeah, because there's a lot happening.
Oh yeah, and I think we've described most of the anxious elements, but before we end it, I do have a question for you on the note of what did you make of certain scenes?
Sure. And then I've got a couple of observations that I made. I've got one life lesson that I'm sure you'll disagree with.
Excellent. Okay. I was going to ask, do you remember the golden elixir that she drinks as like medicine every time she gets migraines?
Yeah.
Yeah, she gets these. This is part of the mystery in the early parts of the movie. Mother, or Jennifer Lawrence, she gets these migraines where she can't see straight. Even the house will vibrate sometimes in her vision. And then she'll take this golden sort of Barocca-like but magical elixir.
Right. Yeah.
And it'll make it go away temporarily. What did you make of that? Because I don't know what I made of it, but I did some reading.
I've got no idea. I was trying to figure it out, and then there was just so much happening that my mind latched onto something else.
Yeah.
What's the general consensus out there?
Apparently, Darren Aronofsky said he's taking it to the grave, like what that meant exactly. But there's theories. I read a little bit because Emma was really interested as well in what it meant. And I couldn't figure it out. None of the theories really stuck for me. And I was trying to think, but nothing really pieced it together quite right, whereas everything else was more obvious.
Yeah.
But on Reddit, people were saying things like it could be sunlight and how or symbolic of sunlight and how integral that is to life, growth. She also mixes it with her paint at the start of the movie, some of the powder, because it's a powder that she pours
does
into the
too. Yes.
And it gives it more yellow, and then she paints it on the walls.
Yep.
So something to do with sunlight, perhaps. Some people were theorizing something to do with opium or heroin and the yellowness that it has to it.
Yeah,
something like that. I didn't quite understand that one as much.
But that's maybe like an explanation of what it is in the real world sort of side of the story.
Yeah.
If you're thinking it's just a film about a husband and wife renovating their house.
Yeah.
Which is such a funny trivialization of the...
That's all it is, really. They're just renovating the house at the end.
In that way, it's quite similar to... What's that film where the frat house moves in next door? You know, it's got Zac Efron and...
Is it called
Seth
Bad
Rogen
Neighbors?
Bad Neighbors, that's right.
Or just, Bad Neighbors, I think, yeah.
Mother is just Bad Neighbors, really.
It's so similar to Bad Neighbors. I never thought about that. It's almost the same. It's a good comparison. But what other points did you have on the note of Mother?
Oh, were there any other theories on what the yellow substance is?
I'm trying to think now. It's something people had theories about, I forget now, but it's something to do with the healing of the earth in between traumatic events, like the Ice Age. Some people said that's what it was. I was like, that doesn't add up to me. I don't understand. Like it technically makes sense, but visually I don't understand that. So the other ones I just didn't really get as much. But that was one of them.
I think sunlight is probably the best... the one that sits best with me.
Yeah, me too. But it doesn't
the
quite
opium
fit.
And heroin one kind of doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one.
I mean, it probably is that. It's it's golden sun, right? So it's I think sunlight is probably what I'd go with then.
Yeah, it's nothing quite fits. So then I think, is it just Darren Aronofsky, being just throwing a curveball in there where it doesn't naturally fit with anything, but it kind of is something that only he knows? That's the vibe it gives me.
Yeah, but like, is he experiencing life and like the lifespan of the Earth in some way that isn't easily accessible to anyone else on Earth? Like, he doesn't have access to any deep dark secrets of the Earth. It's not like
Who knows?
he's got some crazy perspective that's inaccessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you've seen the Fountain movie, you'll understand there's a lot of that, the golden powder part, that's every single scene of the Fountain. It's just strange high fantasy special effects stuff. So I don't know. I think it's a curveball, but sunlight definitely adds up the most to me.
Yeah. It could be yellow cake uranium.
Oh, yellow cake uranium.
I haven't really thought too much about that.
Is that different from regular uranium?
Well,
I don't know what that is.
I don't think so. I think it's just a form of uranium that's particularly good at making bombs.
Particularly delicious and forbidden.
Right, you must never eat that cake.
Forbidden foods, yellow cake uranium. Delicious.
Scrumptious.
Sounds lemony.
It does, right? That's what I would imagine it would taste like.
Yeah.
You can only eat it once.
Yeah, just once. Oh, when I'm on my deathbed, you know what I'm ordering. I'm paying top dollar for that.
Yellow cake uranium.
Probably $1 billion for it.
And you get put on a watch list right at the end of your life.
Yeah.
So.
Fun.
But it could. I don't think it's that. I think it is sunlight.
Yeah, it's probably it.
Yeah. But anyway, what this film told me, the great life lesson that it told me is never write anything down. Never be a writer. Never show people. Never share ideas with people.
Oh.
That's so. I plead to you, Torkel.
You run the risk of being worshipped, you're saying.
Well, it just seems like such a risky idea, you know. He's touted as being this this writer who has written before. He's had people read his work and they were like, that was really good. The people at the start of the movie who sort of pushed their way into the house, they are fans of his work. And then the piece that he writes in the middle of the film that then sort of kicks us onto this, kicks off this massive house party, brings all of these fans and people like almost immediately to the house. So why take the risk?
Keep it all to yourself. But I dare say that this podcast could result in a similar way by putting out our wonderful, innovative, unique, original horror perspectives out into the world. We could accumulate some sort of a ravenous horde of followers.
I guess so. You never know.
But maybe they're just a risk to us because they'll be yearning for content. More episodes, please. I'm hungry.
And it is quite a lot of work to put out this content. I think it's a good analogy for fame just in general.
Yeah, sure.
You know, probably the behavior of these people isn't too different from like paparazzi or fans. In fact, there were some moments that felt like they were playing on like Beatlemania or Bieber mania or One Direction mania, where there were, people getting held back by security guards and then they break through gates and they're running screaming into the house. And, that was, I think, a very deliberate parallel visual reference.
Yeah, journalists and cameras everywhere. And there's an anxiety element to that as well. Obviously, you can imagine having camera in your face and just people careening towards you. just desperate for your attention.
Another observation, and this is something that when I first saw it, because I had been thinking, okay, this is the like biblical creation story, and I was sort of trying to line it up with things. When the baby is born and the father wants to show it to everyone in the house, there's this horrific scene where the baby is crowd surfing. I think the only way to process it is to laugh about it, actually, because it's really quite horrible.
Baby crowd surfing makes me laugh. But that is what happens. But yeah, the baby's being passed down through the crowd. Yeah.
Right. And everyone is like very happy and joyous. And then the baby dies.
Off camera.
Yeah, off camera. Thank goodness. And she's pushing through the crowd, trying to get to him. And then she finds that there's like a priest-like figure there who's passing out pieces of his body, and everyone is eating it. At that point, I was like, okay, this is very clearly about Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The body of Christ, eating the crackers or the bread. Yeah, drinking the wine, the blood.
Right.
Yeah. But they just had to do it about a baby, didn't they? Jesus.
Yeah. So gross.
Yeah.
So gross.
That's a wild part of the movie. So a lot of anxiety-inducing elements in Mother. And should we move on to Smile next?
Oh, just quickly before we do, have you ever had people, maybe this is a not a great question, but have you ever had people in your house, like unwanted guests or people behaving in uncouth ways?
Yeah, I definitely have. I've had a friend who just would never leave unless you told him, like, you have to go now. That was the only way to get him to leave.
Oh no. That's terrible. You feel so bad as well.
Yeah. And recently I've had roommates, and in the past I've had roommates who would have lots of guests all the time, and I'd just be like, what the hell is going on? Is this a commune? Is this a freaking dorm room? Is this a university? What's going on in here? Yeah. So yeah, I've had those moments. What about you?
For me, recently when Jade was unwell, she had a double ear infection, and the pain was really bad one night.
That sucks.
So we called a late night doctor, that comes to your house, and so we had him in here, and he must have been really tired. Which is not really what you want for a late night doctor. Doctors work ridiculous hours, and then I guess he was doing that as well as like additional income. And so I was finding him quite difficult to understand anyway, because he was kind of mumbling but still trying to talk to us and make jokes, and it was kind of awkward in that way. And then as he was leaving, he forgot the way out of our house. And so
just kind of crazy.
Yeah. And also Jade had been sick for a fair while, and I'd been, like working like longer hours and stuff like that. So the house was a real mess. And in preparation for the doctor coming, I'd cleaned up the part of the house that the doctor would be in. And he just walked deep into our house. And Jade and I were both standing there just in shock. Like, what do we do? Like, where's he going?
What's he doing over there?
I was like, can I help you, mate? Like the door's this way. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
But
he
it
was just out of it.
Oh, it made me feel like so anxious.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on.
Oh no, the late night scenario of it all. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
The concern for Jade as well, who's doing really unwell, and you're like, oh god, and this guy's sleep deprived. What's he doing?
Yeah. Oh, he's so sleep deprived. He's walking to our bedroom to go have a nap.
He thinks he's at home. He's just like, well, good night, everyone. I'm charging for this time. No.
Get out of my house. Oh.
No. That's crazy as well. I was going to say, because as someone who's been to your house, it's not hard to know the way out.
No.
But I guess he must have been so tired.
There's a staircase that you have to take to get into the house.
Yeah. And
it stands to reason you'd just look for the staircase. It's not difficult to find.
Yeah, that's the way out.
That's right. So yeah, I could definitely sympathize. Yeah.
Oh yeah, as someone who hates having parties at my house, yeah, I can definitely feel that just from the groups of people, and yeah, roommates having groups of people and me being like, when are they leaving? And then telling the roommates like, okay, they're overstaying though, welcome.
Yeah,
very relatable.
It's rough.
Yeah,
it's rough. But yes, smile is about all that we can do sometimes. Which brings us into Smile, the film I'll be talking about. So it was released in 2022. First-time director Parker Finn. He had done some shorts previous to this movie. And one of them was actually what Smile was based on. It's called Laura Hasn't Slept, which I watched before this episode, and yeah, it's a good short.
Okay, cool.
It got you can find it online if you Google it. There's like a Daily Motion upload of it.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it got picked up by Paramount at South by Southwest, little indie film and arts festival. But yes, the film itself centers around this psychiatrist, Rose, played by Sosie Bacon, who
interesting
is...
name.
Yeah, very interesting name. Do you know she's a nepotism baby? Do you know who the...
Oh, yes, I do then. Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon, that's right.
Yeah.
It also has an Australian actress in it.
Oh.
Yeah. Caitlin Stacey. She was in Neighbours, which I never watched, actually.
Yeah.
Because I'm not British.
Yeah, it's more popular over there. But every Australian actor somehow was in Neighbours. It's where they all started.
Yeah, Neighbours or Home and Away.
Yeah.
On Ramsay Street. But yeah, Caitlin Stacey plays the PhD student at the start who kills herself in front of Rose, the psychiatrist, and she's also she's the actress on the poster image, that iconic poster image of the woman smiling. Yeah. She had a particularly good smile for it.
Yeah, she had the best smile. I always say that when I'm watching the movie. I'm like, she has the scariest smile of everyone.
Yeah, that opening scene is so unnerving. Yeah. That's when you know that you're on for a wild fucking ride. Oh, it's great.
So good.
So good. So the premise of the film is that there is this demon that is haunting people, and it's getting passed on, or it's passing itself on down a chain, almost like an email chain. Back in the old days. But it's a one-to-one chain, and it's getting passed on by traumatic events. So it's making the person that it's possessing commit suicide in front of someone else, and then they inherit the demon.
It's multifaceted in its trauma because it creates these traumatic events, and it also seems to be drawn towards people who already have trauma previous to the traumatic event as well. Feeds off of trauma, you might say. Yeah.
And so Rose watched her mother die of an overdose when she was younger. And that's something that sort of weaves its way through her story as well. Her mother was very troubled. And that sort of informs how other characters treat Rose as she goes through this really terrible time. It's been with that demon as a virus, that virus demon type plot device, it's been compared to It Follows. But I think a better comparison would be Ring.
That is a good comparison. There is a similarity between all these movies.
Yeah, it's the demon as a virus, I think, or like ghost as a virus. It's
passes on.
It Follows, if anyone hasn't watched it, go watch it. Fantastic. It's an STD, and the D is demon, sexually transmitted demon.
I kind of love
Such
It
a fun
Follows.
movie. It's great.
Even though I recognize that Smile is, I think, objectively a better movie than It Follows, I still love It Follows in my heart for some reason. It's weird for me. I like it like that.
It's so much fun because it's also like it's got a similar feel to, like teenagers banding together against this horrific otherworldly force. It plays on like Stranger Things. It feels that sort of it taps into that sort of feeling as well. It's a great movie, and they're bringing out they've just announced a sequel for it.
I saw you post that on our threads. I'm super keen to that. Or is it called They Follow? I think
They Follow.
It's so good. Instead of It Follows, just a singular demon slowly following you. Now hopefully I'm hoping that there's multiple of them.
Surely. Otherwise it's false advertising. I'm just wondering, so movie 1, It Follows. Movie 2, They Follow. Movie 3? What are we calling that?
We Follow.
We Follow. It's from the perspective of the demons.
Yeah. Oh my God. That'd be kind of cool. We'll see if it happens.
That'd be very cool. So how does Smile play with anxiety? How is it generated? How is it maintained? Well, it uses a lot of similar techniques as Mother and as other anxiety horror movies that we've been talking about, building tension. A big key thing that it uses is really effective sound design. There's a lot of using environmental sounds and morphing them in some way, or repeating them, threading them through sort of the music into the next scene. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of droning sounds, a lot of rhythmic sort of punch-ins.
The music is great. Really a focal point of the anxiety throughout the movie. And I think that was different from Mother, because I'm sure there was music in Mother, but I barely took notice of it in comparison to Smile, where that's such a key element of the horror.
Yeah.
There's so much unsettling spins on it.
I can't remember a single piece of music in Mother.
I only thought about it.
If there is any.
Yeah, I only thought about it afterwards when I was watching Smile, because the music in Smile is so good. Makes you feel so anxious. And then I was like, did Mother have anything like this? And I was thinking about it, I was like, I can't remember any music at all. So I'm not actually sure. I don't know if it did. Perhaps not.
Another thing that it does is it leaves a lot of space in the frame. So where it's focusing on Rose, it will put her off to one side, and you can sort of see behind her at some points with the rest of the frame. And because of the way that the subject is weighted in the frame, you feel like there has to be something else next to her to balance out the weight of the frame. And that's used really effectively, I think. And also to sort of fake out when there's going to be something behind her or something in that space.
They do
really
it
interesting.
So well. I noticed the attention to detail on the close-ups and the emphasis on facial features, the actors, and just an amazing acting job by Sosie Bacon in general. Her entire portrayal of this character, Rose Cotter, was just extremely anxious throughout the whole movie.
Yes.
Like we said earlier, the definition of anxiety, tense and like muscle spasms and like jittery and jumpy. She's like always dropping glasses in the house and things like that. But yeah, just the camera zooming on her face while she's making these expressions. And then I noticed they often would blur everything else so that you're really just getting the portrait of the actor's face every time. Yeah, big focus of things like that.
Using a lot of like aperture focus and like taking advantage of that blur, that bokeh. You can sort of see something similar going on behind me on my bookshelf. You know, where you can sort of vaguely see what's going on, but not enough to get a clear look at it. There's this great part where it's closer to the start and she's on the phone to someone and she's looking out the window of her office and she sees her patient who's just committed suicide, you know, the day or two previous. And you can't see any sort of facial expression, really, no finer detail, but you can just tell that this person is looking at her and has some smile going on. It's it's really unnerving.
Their hair's like down, sort of hunched over. You can tell it's the demon there in the form of her, you know, passed away patient who previously had the demon, just standing there in her general direction to the window, but no visual features apparent.
It's great. And just like the way that body language can have that effect is so good. So good. Something else that I love about this movie is how realistic I feel it is of a depiction of someone being possessed or haunted by something, and how the people around them would respond to that and would treat them accordingly. So what do I mean by that? Well, her Rose's fiance, she confides in him eventually when she figures out what's going on. I am seeing this demon everywhere, or this thing, I don't know what it is, but I'm seeing people and they're, you know, it's just like what my patient said. They're like smiling at me and they're telling me things, and I really need you to help me. Hoping that he would, I don't know what she really thought he'd do. And his response is to call her old psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And, you know, to try and get her help in that way. Or to have her committed or something, an intervention. Yeah. I just think, what would the... You know, we see these things happening to people all the time in horror movies.
Yeah.
How did this film get it so right, and yet other films don't feel wrong, you know?
Yeah, it feels really true. The way her husband is just like, you know, you sound crazy right now. And he's just more panicking about her mental state, and even brings up in one scene her mother, who we mentioned had mental health problems and passed away when she was at a young age. And he's like, well, I guess it's genetic. It runs in the family. And it's like, oh, that sort of insensitive thing to say, that comes up in everyday life all the time when you're frustrated or anxious or stressed or something. Say the wrong thing
you're
like
just
that.
like your mother. It's like, what?
Yeah. Oh, God. It cuts deep.
And even her sister, that's her assessment of what's going on. Yeah. And her poor nephew's birthday party.
Oh, no.
Is a real boiling point. It's a real turning point in terms of the conflict of the plot.
It's a day that he'll never forget.
Right, where she unwittingly gifts the cat that she's been looking everywhere for.
Oh, God. Yeah. A dead cat wrapped up in a box as a gift for a nephew for his birthday party in front of heaps of people, by the way. He has heaps of guests, heaps of friends. Goddamn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But,
way to flex on us, kid.
But yeah, it doesn't show her killing the cat or anything like that. It's left as a mystery up until that point. And it builds it up once again, the anxiety of the kid's facial expression as he's opening the gift, being like happy to, oh, what's this? Opening up the wrapping, and then lifts up the cat from its collar, which I thought was quite strange. I wouldn't touch it if I was him.
Well, I guess you might have thought it was like a plush toy or something like that, or a taxidermy cat or something.
I guess maybe.
I don't know. The thing that got me was his mum being like when his face drops, she's like, "Oh, what'd you get, darling?"
Yeah. What'd you get?
Oh, such good writing. Like that scene just felt so real. Yeah.
Oh. It's like the disappointed gift. You know what I mean? There's those scenes in movies where a kid's disappointed with the gift that they get. It sort of replicates that, but then it obviously goes to trauma.
And then later on, where she goes to ask her sister for help, and she gets sent away, and her sister says, you know, my son is so traumatized by you, like you've traumatized him forever, like he'll never forget this. She goes back to her car, and then you see the sister come down the path and like knock on the window, and then her neck just does a 180, and her face is all contorted, and because Rose is obviously seeing the demon. It's not her sister at all, because the demon takes the form of other people. So she's just freaking out in the car, and the little nephew's just watching from the window like, what the hell? What's wrong with her? It's this amazing zoom out from her screaming in her car to like just over his shoulder looking out the window. It's so good.
Because she's also just frustrated at herself, because then she realizes that it's not real. She's like, oh, God damn it, what the hell? And just like hitting the steering wheel and everything.
It got me. That jump scare, it got me.
Yeah. You got me, you bastard. Oh, God. That's probably the funniest scene of the movie for me. Just because I know the zoom out and her freaking out in the car. It's kind of,
Yeah.
it's a thing that you'd see in like a comedy movie where someone gets angry at the car and hits the steering wheel.
Yeah, it was very comical. It was a very comical shot to put in there.
Yeah.
But really good.
So another point in Smile as well, going back to the camera work, you'll definitely notice this when I say it, and you may have noticed it during the movie, but all these points of the film where it's usually the camera's a wide landscape shot of like a car driving down the highway, and the camera's upside down and then slowly turns around, overlooking like this forest and the road and everything. And the unsettling music plays behind it, like something like that. So good. So unsettling, so anxiety inducing. Just the whole upside down thing. I don't know what it is about it, but it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's something that has been used a lot as well. I think most recently I saw it, like the most recent film release that I saw it in was the latest Insidious movie, The Red Door, where they do that sort of flip. A lot of films are doing it, especially with drone shots, because it's so easy, it's so cost effective to get that shot on a drone, and it makes you feel so uncomfortable. It gives you that real sense of vertigo.
Oh, yeah. Going back to our experiences with roller coasters, it kind of gives me that vibe of being upside down on a roller coaster and just hating it.
I wouldn't know what that feels like because I have never been on a roller coaster.
Oh, you are the lucky one.
That goes upside down. That sounds horrible.
I'm trying to think. I kind of have. Not a roller coaster, but an upside down theme park attraction, and it was horrible. Yeah. It's
gotcha.
Yeah. It's not fun. As we both agree on.
Yep. No, that sounds like death.
I think those are all the anxiety elements in Smile. But there was another note of similarities, happy similarities between the two movies, Mother and Smile, which I don't think we realized until we rewatched them again, which was kind of cool.
And of course, watching them back to back, I think.
So similar.
I messaged you last night as soon as I finished Smile, saying, "Oh my god, it's the same movie."
And I hadn't rewatched it yet, so I couldn't remember the ending, and I was like, "Oh, is it? Oh, okay." And then I watched him, and I was like, "Wait a minute, it is."
Yeah, very similar endings.
Yeah. So massive spoiler, but in both the movies, I'd say the similarities, on a general sense, I think the characteristics between the two main characters, Jennifer Lawrence's mother and Sosie Bacon's Rose Cotter in Smile, they're so similar in the way that Rose Cotter is a psychiatrist, and she does it at a facility which is, lower paying, as is mentioned in the movie, because she just really wants to help people with mental health disorders. And so she's such a giving person, such a kind person, doing this type of work. And in Mother as well, as we discussed, she's so hospitable to all these guests, and she's so loving and caring to her husband and all these things. Both these characters are very kind, giving people that are wronged by the others around them in the way that they're not listened to, I would say. They're not understood by a mother, by her husband, Rose Cotter by her husband as well, in fact, and even her sibling, her friends, almost everyone except for the ex-boyfriend who ends up helping her throughout the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was an interesting comparison. And then, of course, the ending as well, where, massive spoiler now, where each of them, once again, the main characters, end up burnt alive upon the conclusion of the film. Really rough stuff, but very symbolic of what the films are about. So
yes, immolation is the word of the day.
Immolation. Write that down, everyone.
Wait, that is the right word, right?
Yeah. To be burnt, to burst into flames or something like that.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure the exact definition, but something like that.
Yeah. No. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Whew.
So, not only do they both finish with an act of self-immolation,
Yeah.
but they also both finish with some old-timey kind of love song. I forget what they were for both, but it's a very similar vibe when the credits roll. It's like very similar.
I remember what it was on Mother, so maybe if I say it, then you'll remember for Smile. I don't remember for Smile.
Yeah, I might look it up.
On Mother, it was that old classic, "It's the end of the world, and everybody," something. I can't remember how it goes exactly, but people will know the one. It's the end of the world.
Don't you know it's the end of the world? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. It ties
the
in
credits
perfectly.
music for Smile was Smile. Smile though your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I don't quite remember the song, but I remember the tone of it now.
No, it wasn't. Sorry.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
I was wrong. It was the Chordettes' Lollipop.
Oh, lollipop, lollipop, oh, lollipop.
Which
What
is
a way.
a bit of a bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of fits the movie because it's all smiles and horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a sinister tone.
But yeah, very similar vibe to the credits. Yeah. Very similar. I hadn't picked up on the similarities between the two characters, so very interesting to hear about that.
There you go. I'm connecting dots. Numerology. No
Everything
numerology
is related.
Yeah, no numerology was required.
Oh, but the run times, if you no.
At the same points of the film, exactly 23 minutes, they both say the same word.
Yes, both films are love songs to each other.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So, I mean, that's our breakdown of anxiety horror for you guys. And before we get into our new segment of new horror recommendations, shall we do a quick little It Lives on Paper, our writer's room segment where we talk about how we change movies, our own ideas for movies, anything to do with the writer's world and movie creation. You anxious? You ready?
Yeah, I'm a little bit anxious because I haven't really thought about what I'm going to say for this.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it either. Let's get into the anxiety of it. So,
shoot from the hip. Let's go.
Yeah. The question is, what anxiety-inducing elements would we add into our own personal anxiety horror movie creations? So I guess what I'm thinking is we don't have to have a solid idea because I just want it to be a quick little segment. But like for us personally, what kind of themes or stuff would you throw into your movie to make it as anxiety-inducing as possible?
Farmers markets.
All right, I can see that. I can see that being horror. What's that, Hot Fuzz? Could do a Hot Fuzz kind of thing with that.
Yeah. There's just something about them. It's like I get really overwhelmed in like big crowds anyway. I have to wear like earplugs a lot when I'm out in public. And even like going to the shopping center is like can be really difficult for me because there's a lot of like visual noise that's going on, and a lot of people I have to navigate and stuff like that. Farmers markets is just that turned up 10 notches for me.
Damn.
It's
the open air helps me actually. The open air of like a farmer's market or market scenario But indoors, I completely agree. There's too much going on, too many people, a lot of noise.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible.
Yeah, the open air, I guess, makes it a little bit like that element, I think, is a little bit nicer than a shopping center, but it's yeah, it's really not enough.
I get that. Okay, so we're thinking some sort of farmer's market horror scene where maybe, I mean, here's an idea right off the bat. What do you say about a very busy carnival that you end up trapped at? So then,
what do I say about that?
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. That's similar to a farmer's market. You had a very busy carnival. Okay, here we go. I'm building on it now. I'm shooting from the hip. You're at a carnival. There's obviously the spooky elements throughout the movie with clowns, interesting lighting, lots of red lighting. And and you're getting jump scared by like these freaky dressed up people and stuff like that, carnies and whatnot. And then you can't escape. There's like no exit. You just keep walking around in circles. There's people everywhere as well. They keep coming. And then you're just pushed into lines for roller coasters and things like that. Where you're stuck on them. How's that for anxiety horror?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Damn, I'd be pretty scared of that one too.
I don't think it would be scary to watch though. I think it would be more scary to be in that. You should, I guess you could sell that as like a very specific haunted house type experience. But I'm not signing up for it.
Yeah. It'd be kind of fun to watch, I think. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
For myself, I'm thinking a movie has to be like found footage. I'm thinking, for me, the best would be like a Paranormal Activity styled thing where there's a lot of suspense, silence, panning camera in the dark, waiting for something to happen. You see the curtains move. But nothing really happens. It's just building it up and up and up for an hour or so. That makes me super anxious. And then maybe if you add into that something like The Descent or something, like some sort of claustrophobia element, I'm thinking. So I guess maybe you're trapped in some caverns and you just, it's just The Descent at this point.
Yeah. Look, so long as it doesn't take place in a cavern, I've got the movie for you. Like,
oh yeah,
there's a movie that came out this year that's essentially what you've just described.
Oh,
it's called Skinamarink.
Oh, Skinamarink. Okay.
Yeah,
I think I've heard of that one.
And it's long periods of time. It actually got people really loved it at first, and there's sort of been a bit of a hangover feeling for people with it because. A lot of people, me included, couldn't finish it because it's a lot of nothing much happening to build tension, and then I don't know if it releases eventually. I haven't gotten that far.
I just saw some stills of it, and it looks exactly like my kind of thing. I love that type of imagery. It looks a lot like one of the Paranormal Activity movies that I really loved, but modernized and maybe even better. So it's done on a shoestring budget. It's about these two children who wake up in the night to find that their parents have gone missing, and not only that, but all the windows, doors, outside portals of their house have disappeared. So it is that sort of claustrophobia, that kind of more kind of found footage side of things. It's similar sort of angles of that. Okay, that's definitely anxiety inducing. I am down to see that. And I would agree with you about the crowds as well. But upon thinking about it, no movie has, like, that makes me anxious in real life, but a movie, I think the only one that's really done that for me is Mother that I can think of. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that'd work for me in a film, but certainly real life. And I'm sure there's a film out there which does it well as well.
Yeah. I am building on your found footage in a house. You're talking about paranormal activity as an example. I would get so something that makes me really anxious is seeing people in security cameras, like where people aren't meant to be.
Yeah.
That's
a big one.
I think if paranormal activity, picture that, turned out to be someone else living in the house and like coming out while you're while you're sleeping, take my money. That's so horrible.
You remember that news story? That was a real life.
One? There's so many.
Oh, okay.
There's so
lots.
many examples of it happening over the course of history. Yeah, people living in the attic.
It's a whole phenomenon. I remember a particular news story about it, and the footage of it from like the home, like you said, CCTV footage was terrifying. Someone creeping out of the attic, checking the fridge, and then like the person walking around in the middle of the night who owns the home, not noticing them. Oh God, that's terrifying. Yeah. Okay, that's a really good pick. I'm picking that as well. That's anxiety.
There was a film. This might take us really naturally into our last segment.
Oh, cool.
A film that I saw recently, because we're planning on doing an episode on When Evil Lurks.
Oh yeah.
A film by Demian Rugner, Argentinian director. He had a film called Terrified, which is about some demons haunting a street, like a residential street, and the inhabitants of it. And there is this terrible part in it that is very similar to what we just talked about. Setting up a camera in your house because you know something weird is going on, and then seeing someone watching you sleep or shift things around in your house. It's like, it made me feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. I'm going to watch all those, because that anxiety feeling, it's good when it's on film, but I can't stand it in real life. I'd freak out if that was happening to me.
Oh yeah. Oh,
fight or flight.
That'd be the worst. Yeah, you wouldn't want to. I'd move. I think I'd move.
Yeah, I'd either go crazy, like fight, or I'd flight. It's either one or the other. I'm not just sitting there. Yeah, I'm definitely moving, or I'm like swinging. In the pitch black darkness, I'm like, get out of my house.
Yeah. Oh my God. What a nightmare.
Okay, those are some great picks. Shall we get into our horror movie recommendations then to finish us off?
Yes, let's.
I've got a new horror pick from Netflix. Recently came out, I think a couple of weeks ago in October. It's called The Conference, or Konferensen.
Hey. Yes, I was going to watch this the other day. Yeah.
Cool.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it.
Me neither, but I've heard about it. My parents actually watched it, and I'm very excited for it. It goes along that theme of actually last episode's recommendation, and also the slasher genre in general, and the masked killer. It's like a satire horror comedy about a masked killer who slashes their way through a work group that's gone on a vacation to like team building, bonding experience kind of thing.
Which is a nightmare on its own.
Oh God, imagine that at work holiday. No, thank you. Unless you're
they're actually not that bad if you go with good people. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to. Definitely the group of workers matters for sure. Yep. And what I'm hoping out of this movie, so this is a Swedish film, by the way, directed by. It's actually based on a novel I researched as well of the same name, The Conference. And that's also a Swedish novel. It's directed by Patrick Eklund, and he also helped write it with Thomas Moldestad and Matt Strandberg, who's the writer of the novel too. He helped write this one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I believe the whole movie is also in Swedish. I'm sure there's dubs and stuff for it. But I'm excited for that element too, because I'm brushing up on my Duolingo lessons in Swedish. And
Nice.
what I'm hoping to get out of it, I'm really hoping, obviously, I'm hoping that it's going to be really fun in the horror sense, like last week's recommendation that I had, Totally Killer. I'm hoping some of those elements. I'm also hoping a bit of Triangle of Sadness out of this. I'm hoping for that.
Yeah.
So I've got my fingers crossed that it has a bit of Triangle of Sadness energy to the comedy part of it.
Yes. Triangle of Sadness. I don't know. That's a really high bar to meet. That is peak satire for me, I think.
Yeah. I think that was also a Swedish film, if I'm correct about that. So I'm hoping that maybe there's a similar type of humor there or something. But yeah, The Conference is out on Netflix right now. I'm pretty sure it's doing really well on Netflix, so I was reluctant to pick it. But, foreign language films, they could always use an extra boost from our beloved audience.
Absolutely. And yeah, I did see that come up and I was like, oh, a Swedish film. That What if Torkel knows about that?
Yeah, my parents watched
that's
it.
Great.
That's the connection. They were like, oh, nothing happens in it until the end. But I'm like, that's perfect for me. Some of my favorite films, nothing happens in until the end. So
that's right. Yeah.
That's a warning for the audience. If you don't like waiting for something to happen, maybe not for you. But it's a good one, I've heard.
My film is Cobweb, which came out sometime this year. It has been, I've seen it on a lot of people's lists of top movies, top horror movies that came out this year. And I haven't seen it yet, obviously. This is something I'm going to watch very shortly. I might even watch it tonight because I just watched the trailer for it again and I was reinvigorated. I'm like, I need to watch this. It's about you've seen it actually. So.
I was going to say, yes. I saw this a couple of weeks ago. It's out now on Stan in Australia. Stan streaming service.
Excellent.
Beloved Stan. And yeah, I remember the acting was incredibly good from the child in the movie because it's obviously about a family with a young child and the parents are not what they seem. There's a sinister background to them, which is being, inflicted upon the child. And the child's acting is just so good. I don't know who this kid is. I need to look up who he is, but he's one to look out for in future movies, especially if he's in more horror movies in the future, because that was a really good performance.
Yeah, great. I can't wait.
He's Woody Norman. Woody Norman. That's a good name as well.
Woody Norman, the famed actor.
Woody Norman of age 12.
But yeah, it looks really great. It's it's tapping into that unnerving, like building tension. This boy keeps on getting woken up in the night by knocking on his wall, and he's having nightmares, and he keeps telling his parents, I'm like really scared to go to sleep, or I can hear this knocking, and they keep saying to him, stop having nightmares. Just stop it. Cut it out.
There's nothing there, you idiot, you child. Trust me, I'm the adult who's gaslighting
you. So the trailer obviously builds that tension really well. I feel ready to go watch it. Do you feel like it lived up to, like, is it a good movie?
I think it's really, really solid. I think I mentioned this in episode 0, but I kind of went away from horror for a long time because I think I got tired of repetitiveness in the horror genre. But lately, I have to say, over the past 5, even 10 years, there's been some really good new takes on horror. And this one takes some classics, it does some original things, and it does it really well. And I don't want to give away any of the, twists and turns that happens, because there's some really good ones in this movie that I'm just remembering now. But it is really good, and you kind of have to see it to know what happens and to know what's scary about it. It is really good. I got to say that. Yeah, it's a solid pick for this year. I think it's a top release for 2023.
No, gotcha. It looks really good. And I saw in the trailer, I'm not sure which producer they're referring to here, but one of the producers from Barbarian is also producing this film. And Barbarian was it was probably my favorite movie last year. So good, so refreshing.
Yeah, Barbarian was really special. I can definitely see some similarities.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, some similarities for sure. I want to get your opinion on it. So yeah, definitely watch it. Everyone else, you should definitely watch it as well. It's a super good movie, Cobweb.
Yeah, excellent. I'll talk about it next episode then. My last thing that I was looking forward to was When Evil Lurks, and I've actually highlighted that for our next episode.
Excited.
So we'll be talking about that next. But yeah, really excited for that. That was such a solid movie. I was blown away.
From what I've read about it, I'm really keen to watch it. I need to get a Shudder subscription so I can see that one, and then I'm just going to binge everything on Shudder for a month. Nice.
It's really good. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. But yeah, it comes in waves. They put stuff out, and then it's
That's been Anxiety Horror, an analysis by us. It lives on tape. Done. The episode's in the tank.
In the bag. Let's go.
Yes, it feels so satisfying to knock it out like that. I got to do the physical thing of scrunching up the paper. It's so good.
Yes. And now we'll never talk about it again. We'll never talk about anxiety and horror ever again. Over. It's going to be very difficult to talk about horror without talking about anxiety.
Yeah. we needed to acknowledge it on its own, and now it's done. And now we can get to the other parts of horror, which is the spooks and the scares, and just rattling them off the top of my head.
The laughs and the gaffs.
Yeah.
And
the gore.
Yeah. Although we don't much like that part.
Yeah, we've talked enough about that.
Yeah. But yeah, that was yet another episode of It Lives on Tape. We thank you so much for tuning in, for coming with us on this journey. And if you want to show us some love, you can drop us a rating on Spotify. You can subscribe to us and hit that like button if you're watching this on YouTube. It'd be a massive help, massive boost to us.
A lot of people don't know this as well, but maybe it's just me, but you can follow podcasts on Spotify. Yes. So give us a follow on Spotify too, and then there's a little notifications tab that'll give you a little blue dot whenever we release a new episode too. Check us a follow on there. Do all the other good stuff.
Absolutely.
Thank you very kindly.
And have a wonderful whatever period of time you're experiencing currently and next. And we'll see you in our next episode.
Yeah. Thanks for coming with us on this journey. We'll see you next time.
See you, everyone. See you, Torkel.
Bye. Adios.
Bye.